Welcome to the Songwriter Connection Podcast. Our show originates in Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA. We connect you to the songwriters and the stories behind your favorite songs. Join us as we take a look at the craft of songwriting through the eyes of the songwriter. Now, here's your host, Dave Lenahan.
Hello, and thanks for joining me. I am Dave, and I live in Nashville, Tennessee, where I am surrounded by songwriters. And that's a good thing, being a songwriter myself. This is episode 0 of the podcast, which we call Songwriter Connection. And in this, I want to share with you the vision and what you're going to hear and hopefully enjoy on the Songwriter Connection podcast. First, a little bit about your host. That's me, Dave Lenahan. And I've been involved in radio, television broadcasting for more years than I care to admit. But I bring that passion to the Songwriter Connection. It started for me back in college. By then, I knew I wasn't going to be the big rock star I dreamed about. So I thought the next best thing would probably be to play my favorite music on the radio. And I had the opportunity to do that. And I worked in a lot of different genres, from jazz and rock to big band and adult contemporary, progressive music, but eventually landed in country music while I lived in Cleveland, Ohio, the home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I learned to love country music there. I moved to Cincinnati, where I had a chance to work at a great country music radio station there and got a chance to hang with some Hall of Fame broadcasters. I learned a lot there. While doing that, I ran a very popular broadcast school, and I had a chance to mentor young broadcasters breaking into the business. I'm very proud about that. Over the years, I've had a chance to interview many celebrities and country singers, everybody from Willie Nelson to Barbara Mandrell. And on my Cincinnati TV show called Nashville Songwriter Connection is what it was called. Yeah, there's this connection thing with me. I'm not sure why. We had a chance to talk to some of the best songwriters in the business. People like Jeffrey Steele, Rivers Rutherford, Carrie Kurt Phillips, Win Varble, Will Nance, Jason Matthews, and there were so many others. I enjoy talking to people that have a passion for what they do, especially if the passions are shared by me, like songwriting. So let's talk about me and music. I've had a love affair of music since I was a little kid. And I remember probably the best Christmas gifts ever my brother Rusty and I got. When I was 11 years old, and he was 3 years younger than me, it was a guitar. Both of us had guitars for Christmas that year. And my brother, he picked it up right away. Russ was born with perfect pitch. You could play a note on a piano. My brother could tell you what that note was, just like that. I had a little bit of a teen ear, but I loved to play the guitar. And Russ would teach me how to play songs that he picked up on the radio. He could hear it once and play it. It was amazing. Me, I learned to noodle on the guitar. I always like to come up with different progressions and melodies, and sometimes I'd even put words to them, and that's how it kind of started for me, but nothing really serious until I was well into my broadcast career. I was doing Afternoon Drive in Cincinnati when the program director and I were invited to speak for the local chapter of NSAI. I'd never heard of them before, and if you hadn't, let me tell you just a little bit. NSAI stands for Nashville Songwriters Association International. They are dedicated to the craft and teaching the craft of songwriting throughout their chapters throughout the world. And in Dayton and Cincinnati, we had a very active chapter called DaySin and the Songwriter Workshop. So I joined them right away because when we went to that first meeting and talked, we were talking about how songs hit the charts and how we choose songs and things like that. I saw a room full of people that loved the craft of songwriting. I didn't know about the craft until then, but I knew I wanted to learn, and I knew these people could help me. So I joined, and I worked very hard on songwriting, met some great co-writers there, made a lot of trips to Nashville, Tennessee, eventually became the Cincinnati coordinator of NSAI's local chapter. Well, I moved to Nashville in 2013. After a lot of trips to Nashville, over the years in broadcasting and songwriting, you make trips to Nashville, and you just fall in love with this town. I decided I had to live here. So like I said, we moved here in 2013. And that's pretty much my story about music, broadcasting. Now, I want to tell you more about this broadcast, because When I was at the school I was telling you about, teaching young broadcasters, I used to tell them, you can live your dream and you can accomplish anything you dream if you know what your passions are. Discover what those passions are. Have that passion drive you toward the success. So this show, I'm combining my passions. My passion for broadcasting, interviewing people, and my passion for music and songwriter. And that's how this show began. We're going to introduce you to some pretty interesting people. We're going to play music live on this show. We're going to play recorded music on this show. We're going to talk about the craft of songwriting and examine it together and hopefully bring you along on the journey. Let me tell you about our very first Songwriter Connection podcast, which is coming very soon. My guest is going to be a good friend of mine, Billy Lee. Billy Lee hails from New York City, but he's lived in here in Nashville for quite some time. He's a great songwriter, and he's done a lot in his career. Guitar player, producer. He's worked with such people as Brewer and Shipley, Delaney and Bonnie, Toots and the Maytals, and we'll find out more about that. But we're really going to focus on his songwriting career. He has written songs for many artists, including Chip Eston, who played Deacon Claiborne on the TV show Nashville. But he had a huge hit in 2003 with a song called The One, cut by country artist Gary Allan. And on the show, we're going to take a closer look at that song. We're going to talk about the writing process. We're going to take a look at the work tape, play you the demo, and eventually the final project, which you heard on the radio. It's a great song, and we're going to dig into it. It'll be a great conversation, and I hope you'll join us for the show. Coming soon, it's episode 1 with hit writer Billy Lee, and you don't want to miss it. I look forward to joining you in the future as we start something beautiful here, hopefully. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Songwriter Connection Podcast. Find us on social media at Songwriter Connection. Also, listen to Dave Lenahan's Nashville Connection radio show. It streams live every Friday morning on WOBL and WNOI. Look for us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next time on Songwriter Connection.